What are the 6 sense doors and how can we use them in our meditation practice? Stay tuned because that's what we'll be discussing on today's Meditation Monday. Hi folks, Rob Phillips here, and welcome back to another edition of Meditation Monday, where every single Monday I give you a new guided meditation that you can practice at home. So for today's meditation, we're going to be doing things just a little bit differently than I have in the past. So the reason for that is I want you to have a bit of theory going into our meditation practice. Now, having said that, if you want to jump right into the guided meditation, I'll give you a timestamp down below. But for folks who want just a little bit of theory about the 6 sense doors, we'll be discussing that right now. So the 6 sense doors are one of the lenses that we can use as we approach our meditation practice. So particularly in Vipassana meditation, we really want to open up to all of our experience as it is in each moment. And really the main way that we experience each moment is through our senses. So we do have our 5 kind of traditional senses, which are seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting. And that's definitely part of our practice. The 6th sense in this case is actually anything that arises within our mind. And really the reason that we would consider the mind to be a sense of sorts is it encourages us to disengage a little bit from our thoughts. It kind of changes the relationship with the mind itself. So for today's practice, what we'll be doing is we'll go through each of these senses one at a time, get a feel for it for at least a few minutes or so. And then finally at the end, we're going to tie it all together. We'll do opening up to all of our senses. So if you're ready to begin here, let's just find a comfortable seat, close your eyes, let's get right into it. Now for today's practice, we'll be exploring the 6 sense doors as they're traditionally taught in Buddhist meditation practice. And as a refresher, the 6 sense doors that we're talking about are our 5 traditional senses, as well as considering the mind itself to be a sense of sorts. But first, before we delve into all of that, start by aligning the body into a comfortable posture, feeling a nice sense of lift in your spine, but softness in the shoulders, making sure that you feel comfortable, yet somewhat lifted, somewhat bright within the body. And having found this nice stable posture from which we'll work, beginning to tune into our first sense, which is the sense of touch. And that will involve really everything that arises within our body. So here, start to tune in and really feel the body. You might start just by noticing the ground beneath you, feeling that stable base. Within the body, noticing how the breath moves, noticing how your sensation might shift a little bit here and there. Maybe even opening up the awareness so that we notice the body as a whole from head to toe. And so this sense of touch, this awareness of the body and all the various sensations within it, becomes a sort of home base for our practice. So body is always there, front and center, that sense of touch, maybe feeling contact with the floor or your chair. Maybe noticing the breath as it comes and goes within your body. All of these fall within the domain of the sense of touch. And especially as we settle deeper into our practice, I would highly recommend anchoring the awareness with the sense of touch beneath your seat. Feeling that contact with the ground, or again, that contact with your chair. Each time that you check in there, concentration will start to build. The awareness will start to settle just a little bit. And so even though all our other senses are important in their own ways, body remains the home base because it remains the most stable. It remains the most continuous. And we'll definitely keep checking back here again and again as a way to keep the mind a little more centered. But for now, having connected with that sense of touch, can we begin to shift senses into the hearing sense? Beginning to notice sounds. And depending on where you're practicing, of course, there might be a lot of sounds. Maybe you live on a busy street, for example. If you're practicing in a more quiet space, the sounds might be a little less obvious, but I imagine they'll still be there. So just really noticing that hearing sense and what that's like for you. You may hear sounds come and go around you. You may just notice the most subtle of background noises. Really, whatever is arising for you, can you notice and connect with that, just as it is? And then as we transition here, checking back in with our foundation, with our home base, which again is that sense of touch, sense of the body. For a few moments, feel the contact with your seat. Feel the base beneath you. Using that as a way to check back in right where you are. Now, as we shift awareness to our visual sense, our sense of sight, I would still encourage you to keep your eyes closed. That might seem like a bit of a paradox, but we're actually noticing the visual sense in a more subtle way here, as opposed to looking around at our environment. So even with your eyes closed here, what is your experience within the visual field? If there's some light around you, you may notice that light passing through the eyelids. It may have a particular color to it. If you're in a more dark space, you may notice the absence of that light. You may notice the darkness itself. So again, welcoming and observing whatever your visual sense brings you, even with your eyes closed, and being conscious of that. Conscious of what it's like to see without specifically looking at any specific thing or particular thing. And then, once again here, bringing awareness back to our sense of touch, back to the contact with the ground beneath you, and back to the body in general. Using that as a way to stabilize the awareness, keeping us present, keeping us here. And then shifting to what will probably be the most subtle senses for most of us. And those are the senses of taste and smell, which are very much related to one another. So beginning to notice, is there any taste arising within the mouth? Are there any scents within your environment coming in through the nose? Again, depending on where you are, this might be extremely subtle, or it might be very obvious. But if any sense of taste, any sense of smell is entering, connect with that here for just a short while more. And then once again, bringing the awareness back to that sense of touch, back to the connection with the ground beneath you. Again, as our anchor. Again, as our home base. And finally here, getting into what is arguably the most challenging sense door to work with. And that is beginning to notice the mind itself, or our thought patterns themselves, as a sort of sense object. So, in a sense, changing our relationship to the thinking mind so that it just becomes something else to observe, just as we notice sounds, just as we notice what shows up within the body. So starting first with our anchor here, do feel the ground beneath you. But as you relax into that, can you notice anything that arises in the mind? Has a thought shown up? Has a memory or a plan shown up? Can you notice that that has happened, but then let it go? Perhaps returning back to the contact with the ground, back to that sense of touch. And then pausing again, settling and noticing what arises within the mind. Again, maybe it's a thought, maybe it's even a feeling or a reaction. Can you notice that, but let go of it, not drifting off into it? And again, the anchor is important. Noticing the ground beneath you. So working with the mind requires a bit more care. It is easy to get swept away by the thoughts. It is easy to lose track of the awareness as we do that. But taking a minute here and continually noticing what arises in this sixth sense door, the mind itself, as needed, returning the awareness back to your seat, back to that sense of touch beneath you. And here, once again, bringing awareness back to your seat, back to that sense of touch. For our final few minutes in this guided practice, instead of specifically directing towards any one sense, can we now open up the awareness to all of our senses and really notice how they come and go, really notice how they interact with one another. As you do this, I'd encourage you to keep coming back to our foundation, back to our anchor, noticing the ground beneath you. But also just noticing how the various senses come and go. Opening up the awareness and really letting all of that in. And especially when working with that sixth sense door, letting go if the mind feels like it's drifted off. Doing your best not to feed too directly into the thought process, really just witnessing it. Again and again, coming back to that sense of touch so that we stay present, so that we stay rooted. Opening up to all of our senses for just a short while longer here. And one last time here, bringing awareness to the sense of touch, sense of the ground beneath you. Final moment here, opening up to all your senses. Final conscious moment of awareness together. And thank you so much for joining me today for this guided practice. Thank you so very much for joining me for that guided meditation practice where we explored the 6 sense doors. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give me a like down below. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel because I'll be coming out with new guided meditations every single Monday. And if you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to discuss whatever comes up for you.